before the glass slipper, before the pumpkin carriage, before the happily ever after, there was a girl who had nothing, and a world that wanted to keep it that way.
There was once a gentleman who married for the second time, and in doing so made the worst possible choice. His new wife was the proudest, most arrogant woman imaginable. She had 2 daughters from her first marriage who were exactly like her in every way. Same temper, same cruelty, same high opinion of themselves. The gentleman had a daughter of his own. She was everything her stepmother and stepsisters were not. Genuinely good, patient, and sweet-natured in a way that came naturally to her, inherited from her own mother, who had been a truly kind woman. The moment the wedding was over, the stepmother showed her true character. She could not stand the sight of the girl. The girl's goodness made her own daughters look worse by comparison, and that was unforgivable. So she put her to work. The girl scrubbed the floors, cleaned the dishes, scoured the tables, and tidied the rooms from morning to night. While her stepsisters slept in beautiful furnished rooms with soft beds and large mirrors, she was given a wretched straw bed in a cold garret at the top of the house. She bore all of it without complaint. She never told her father, partly because she didn't want to cause trouble, and partly because his wife had him so completely under her thumb that it would have done no good anyway. When her work was done each evening, she would go and sit in the chimney corner among the cinders and ashes, the only quiet place in the house. Because of this, they called her Cinderella. Cinderella, for all her ash-gray clothes and dirty hands, was 100 times more beautiful than either of her stepsisters, though they dressed in the finest things money could buy, and she had nothing. Word came that the king's son was holding a grand ball and had invited everyone of fashion and standing in the kingdom. The 2 stepsisters were invited. They moved in the right circles, and the news sent them into a frenzy of preparation that lasted for days. They talked of nothing else. What gowns, what petticoats, what headdresses. The eldest decided on her red velvet suit with French trimming. The younger chose a gold-flowered coat with a diamond stomacher she was particularly proud of. They sent for the best hairdresser in the city and ordered their rouge from the most fashionable supplier. Through all of this, Cinderella was the one doing the work, ironing their linen, pleating their ruffles, fetching and carrying while they preened. They even called her in to advise them on their outfits, knowing she had better taste than either of them, and she gave her opinions honestly and helpfully. She even offered to dress their hair herself, which they were happy to let her do. While she was arranging one of their heads, a stepsister said with a smirk,
"Cinderella, wouldn't you love to go to the ball?"
Cinderella kept working.
Please, you're only teasing me. That sort of thing is not for someone like me.
Quite right. People would laugh themselves sick seeing a cinder wench at a royal ball.
Anyone else would have done the hair badly on purpose after a comment like that. Cinderella did it perfectly. The day came. The sisters climbed into their carriage, and they were gone. Cinderella watched them go until she couldn't see them anymore. Then she sat down and wept. Her godmother found her in tears and asked what was wrong. Cinderella tried to speak, but couldn't get the words out between the sobs. Her godmother waited. She already knew. She was a fairy, and she understood exactly what her goddaughter was feeling.
You wish you could go to the ball.
Cinderella managed a yes.
Then stop crying. Do as I tell you, and you shall go.
She sent Cinderella out to the garden to fetch the finest pumpkins she could find. Cinderella brought it back, having no idea what a pumpkin had to do with a royal ball. Her godmother scooped out the inside completely, leaving only the hollow rind, then tapped it with her wand. In an instant, the pumpkin was a gilded coach, gold all over, gleaming in the evening light. Then her godmother went to the mousetrap. 6 mice, all alive, each one touched with her wand, each one becoming a beautiful dapple gray horse, perfectly matched to its fellows. A rat with the most impressive whiskers in the trap became a large, jovial coachman who settled onto the box as if he had been driving coaches his whole life. 6 lizards from behind the watering can became 6 footmen in gold and silver livery who leapt up onto the back of the coach and clung there in perfect formation. Her godmother stepped back and looked at the result. "There," she said, "a proper equipage. Are you pleased?" "Oh, yes," said Cinderella. Then she looked down at herself, still in her worn, dirty, everyday clothes. "But must I really go like this?" Her godmother touched her once more with the wand. The rags became a gown of cloth of gold and silver, covered all over with jewels, and on her feet a pair of glass slippers, the most exquisite and delicate things she had ever seen. Her godmother leaned in with one final instruction. She must not, under any circumstances, stay past midnight. The moment the clock struck 12, everything would go back to what it was. Not one moment past midnight, Cinderella promised. The coach rolled away. When the unknown princess arrived at the palace, everything stopped. The violins fell silent. The dancing stopped. Every head in the room turned. The king's son was told that a great princess had arrived whom nobody could identify, and he ran to receive her himself, taking her hand as she stepped down and leading her personally into the hall. Nobody spoke. Then the murmuring began. "She is extraordinary. Have you ever seen anyone so beautiful? Who is she? Where does she come from?" Running through the room like a wave. Even the king, old as he was, leaned over to the queen and said quietly that he hadn't seen a woman that beautiful in a very long time. The prince led her to the finest seat in the hall and then asked her to dance. She danced with him for most of the evening, and the more people watched her, the more they admired her. A supper was laid out, and the prince ate nothing. He could not take his eyes off her long enough to manage a bite. At one point, Cinderella slipped away and went to sit beside her stepsisters, offering them oranges and citrons the prince had given her. They accepted with pleasure. They had never seen this princess before in their lives. They had no idea who she was. Then she heard the clock. 11:45. She stood, made a quick curtsy to the company, and left the hall as fast as she could without running. The next evening, Cinderella returned, this time in a gown even more magnificent than the first. The prince stayed beside her the entire evening, talking to her, dancing with her, saying everything a young man says when he is completely and hopelessly in love. Cinderella was so happy that she forgot. She forgot the clock. She forgot the warning. She was listening to the prince and thinking that surely it was only 11 when she heard the first stroke of midnight. She ran out of the hall, through the doors, down the steps. The prince ran after her, but she was too fast for him, gone through the palace gates before he could catch up. On the steps, the prince found one small glass slipper. Cinderella made it home, breathless and disheveled, wearing her old clothes, with nothing left of the whole enchanted evening. but the one glass slipper still on her foot, the fellow to the one she had lost on the palace steps. It was clear to everyone who saw him that the prince was deeply in love with whoever the slipper belonged to. He spent the rest of the evening doing nothing but staring at it. And when the ball was over and the palace emptied, he was still holding it. A few days later, the prince had a proclamation made throughout the kingdom, announced by trumpeters in every street. He would marry the woman whose foot the glass slipper fitted perfectly. His men began at the top, princesses, duchesses, all the women of the court, and worked their way down. Nobody's foot matched. The slipper was brought at last to the two stepsisters, who pushed and squeezed and forced with everything they had. It was no use. Cinderella was watching from the corner. She said, laughing softly,
"Let me try."
Her sisters burst out laughing at the idea. But the gentleman who had been sent to conduct the fitting looked at Cinderella carefully and saw that she was remarkably beautiful, and said that his orders were to try the slipper on every woman in the kingdom without exception. He sat her down. He slipped it onto her foot. It went on as if it had been made for her, because it had. The stepsisters stared. Then Cinderella reached into her pocket and produced the other slipper and put it on. Her godmother appeared at that moment and touched Cinderella's clothes with her wand. The worn, everyday dress became the most magnificent gown she had yet worn, richer than either of the two ball gowns, more beautiful than anything her stepsisters had ever seen. And now they knew. This was the princess, the unknown beauty at the ball, the woman the prince had danced with all evening, who had sat beside them and given them fruit and shown them every kindness, was Cinderella. The girl they had treated as a servant, the girl who slept in the ashes. They fell at her feet and begged her forgiveness for every cruelty they had shown her. Cinderella lifted them up and held them. She told them she forgave them completely and with her whole heart, and she meant it. She asked only that they love her going forward. She was brought to the prince exactly as she was. He thought her more beautiful than ever. They were married within a few days, and Cinderella, who was as good as she was beautiful, gave her two stepsisters rooms in the palace and arranged that very same day for each of them to be married to a great lord of the court, the girl who had slept in the ashes, who had done their hair perfectly and watched them leave, who had been given nothing and chose to give everything anyway. That was Cinderella. That was always Cinderella. Quiet night, ancient stories, timeless wisdom, one night at a time. If this story meant something to you, subscribe. There are many more nights ahead.